You know, and if there's one thing you've got to know, is that I'm very bad at predicting things. When I do it on the channel consistently, I don't do very well, but usually I'm predicting things that are weeks, months, sometimes only like a year in advance. What I'm going to try and do today is predict things that will happen in the next decade of football. From the 24-25 season to the 33-34 season, I predicted things to do with managers, players, clubs, money, corruption, other things involving in the game, and I'm going to give these 50 predictions, and hopefully in a decade's time, when I'm 27, that's a bit weird to think about, I'll be back on this channel and we'll react to these and see how badly I did, because I'm probably going to get like 2 right. If I can get 25, if I can get 50% of these correct in a sense, I'll be so happy, right? My first prediction is Lamine Yamal is going to break the world record transfer fee. The way money works in football at the moment, it's just ridiculous, and I think it's only a matter of time before a player breaks that fee of 200 plus million that Mbappe cost back in the day to PSG. And I think Lamine Yamal is the perfect candidate, and he'll probably go to PSG, to be honest, because they're the only club that seem willing enough to pay that ridiculous amount of fee. Okay, my second prediction is that Man City will rejoin the European Super League. Okay, let me explain this. So, I believe Man City hopefully will rightfully be relegated for their 115 charges of FFP regulations, which is the most drawn out saga in all of football. And because of this, Man City won't have much left to run, so they will rejoin the European Super League alongside the Spanish clubs who are already in it and try and restart it, and it won't work because the fans will stop it just like last time. Okay, my third prediction, Mbappe will go back to PSG. This seems like quite an easy thing to predict. Mbappe loves PSG because they treat him how he wants. I think he'll do decent at Real Madrid. He'll win a lot of trophies, Champions League, La Ligas, maybe on a treble, and then after 5 or 6 years he'll go back to PSG where they'll pay him ridiculous money again, and he'll just waddle around like a penguin on the field and no one will really care. Okay, my fourth prediction, Newcastle will win the Premier League. This seems quite obvious because, you know, eventually surely they got it sorted out. I doubt Eddie Howe will be the manager. In fact, I know Eddie Howe won't be the manager, and I know for a fact that 90% of the people in that squad probably won't still be there. Maybe 1 or 2 will stick around. Like maybe Dan Burn will still be a cheerleader or something. But surely Newcastle win the Premier League, being the richest club in the world. And if Man City disappear for a couple of seasons, then that gives them a bit of a window. And, you know, Arsenal are not going to last at the top forever either. Okay, my fifth prediction is that Diego Simeone will manage Chelsea. Now, Diego Simeone's loyalty to Atletico Madrid is admirable, but it can't go on forever. And what club more than any needs a manager like Diego Simeone? Well, that's Chelsea. I would love to see Simeone and Bowley kind of working together, even though I think Bowley's going to resign and someone else is taking over for him, but he's going to be there somewhere. But that is my fifth prediction. Okay, my sixth prediction is that Bolton will return to the Premier League. I've done a few things in here where I've kind of just predicted teams that will come back to the league at some point, because I think that's quite interesting. Bolton, of course, were a massive team in the 2000s, nearly went into administration a few years back, and I think they'll recover, go back to the Prem. You know, they almost got promoted to the Championship last season. I think, like Ipswich, they might even go back to back or something like that. Okay, seventh, Everton will not be relegated. Everton haven't won much, but they do have the title of never being relegated since the 50s, and I think that will return. A takeover for Everton seems desperate, and it needs to happen, and it will happen, and in their new stadium, they won't go down. They won't do much else. They may even return to the top half. They're not going to win anything, but they won't be relegated. Okay, my eighth prediction, and I don't think people are going to like this one. Girona will take over Barcelona as the second biggest club in Spain success-wise. Now, I'm not going to say that Girona will match the fan base of Barcelona, because that's insane to say, but in a similar vein to how Man City in success and, you know, actually on the pitch are way more successful in the last 10 years than Man United, but Man United clearly are the bigger club in fan base, I think we'll see a similar thing, where Barcelona will still, of course, have the fan base and the history, but Girona will actually be the more successful team, and we consistently finish on above them, and being the main challenger to Real Madrid every season. It's a shame what money does in football. Okay, my ninth prediction is that Haaland and Mbappe will play in the same team. I think if Man City are to get relegated, then surely Haaland will be the first person out the door, and the most obvious destination for him is Real Madrid, where I think he will play alongside Mbappe and Vinicius Jr. That can't happen. Don't let that happen. Okay, my 10th prediction is that the Netherlands will win a major tournament. Now, I wanted to say England will win a major tournament, but I just don't believe it. So I picked another team that seems down on their luck in these tournaments. It's the Netherlands. They've got a fantastic young spine and a lot of people coming through. And I think eventually, if they get the right coach, they could win a tournament. Okay, my 11th prediction is that Harry Kane will break Alan Shearer's record. I think Kane won't last too long in Bayern. I think this may even be his last season. I think he'll probably go back to Spurs as well. Or shock the world and go to Man United or something. And I think he will eventually break Shearer's record. Okay, my 12th prediction is that Pep Lijnders will manage Liverpool. Now, this seems like a sensible thing. He's going to RB Salzburg, and he's been successful so far, and he seemed to always be kind of the second brains behind Liverpool, and it makes sense to return. I'm not saying Arne Slot's going to be a complete disaster. I think we'll get a good few years, but in 10 years, I think Pep Lijnders will be a good, obvious shout to replace Arne Slot when he eventually leaves. Okay, my next prediction is that Inter Milan will go invincible. Now, every few years we do get an invincible team. We had Leverkusen, of course, last season, Juventus. Last decade, we had Arsenal the decade before. Of course, Rangers also went unbeaten, but who really cares? So, I believe the invincible team will be Inter Milan. I really like Inzaghi as a coach. I think he'll stay there for a while, and they're building a great spine, and why not? 14th, a team will get 102 points in the Premier League. That's mad. Only dropping 12 points in an entire season. But I think someone will do it, and it won't be Man City. I don't know who it's going to be, but Centurions will be beaten in this decade. Okay, my 15th prediction, this is a bit of an odd one. Tino Livramento will be England's Player of the Year. I really believe in Tino Livramento as a player. I think he can play on both sides, left, right, back, and I think long term he'll be a mainstay for Newcastle and will be an England Player of the Year at some point. Okay, 16th, Big Sam and Roy Hodgson will manage another team. You think they're retired, but they're never really retired. They're going to be back, let's be honest. Big Sam is definitely going to be back, and Roy will probably take some championship gig. Okay, my 17th prediction is that there will be a female manager in the Premier League with the growth of the women's game consistently. I think a team like Brighton or something, or Bournemouth, one of those more hipster teams, will take a punt. I think it might be a bit of a disaster, especially with some fans, but I think it will be something that will happen. 18th, Trent Alexander-Arnold will lift the Premier League as Liverpool captain. This seems like a simple prediction. He has the long-term vision to become Premier League captain, and if, City are to be relegated, and, Arsenal won't last forever, potentially Liverpool could compete again. And surely they get another one. It's 10 years. Seems realistic. 19th, Arteta will go to Barcelona. I think this is another obvious thing to say. I think Arteta Barcelona has been linked a few times, and I think he'll get tired of the bottle jobs he's working with at Arsenal and will jump ship. But I think he will eventually win something with them, and we'll get to that later. 20th, Ivan Toney will be forgotten in 3 years' time. Ivan Toney is currently linked with the Saudi Pro League. He's a lot older than you think he is. I think he'll go to Saudi, flop in Saudi, probably have another scandal or something, and the world will forget about him. 21st, Wrexham will lift the trophy before Spurs. Look, if it's 2007, February 2007 was the last time that Tottenham won a trophy. Wrexham are jumping leagues, they've got a lot more investment, and they seem more ambitious. They'll win a trophy. They'll win the FA Cup. 22nd, Dele Alli will score another Premier League goal. This seems a bit insane. Dele Alli has just been released by Everton. But surely one newly promoted team will take a punt on him on small wages, and he'll score another Premier League goal. Okay, my next prediction, the 23rd, is that there will be a boycott of the Club World Cup. Real Madrid have already said they're not going to compete in it, and I think a bunch of clubs are going to take a stand against this ridiculous money-filled oil competition, and the Club World Cup will fall apart. Okay, my 24th prediction is not the happiest one. I think Sir Alex Ferguson is suddenly going to pass away in the next 10 years. I mean, he's 82 currently, and it just seems obvious. I don't really like that prediction, really. Okay, halfway now, 25th, and I said Jose Mourinho will manage Porto again. This seems like another obvious thing to say. It's kind of a full circle thing, you know. Mourinho's best days as a manager is behind him, but he's still got a lot to offer. He's currently at Fenerbahce, for God's sake. He will go back to Porto eventually. My next prediction is that Marcus Rashford will retire from football entirely at 32 years old. I think the career of Rashford is quite sad. A player with such potential, but just does not have the mentality or consistency to really be the player he could have been, especially when he was young. And I think he will retire at 32. 28th, Milner will get a job in the Championship as a manager. This seems like an obvious thing to do. James Milner will surely be retired in the next 10 years. I mean, come on. I still think he's got 2 or 3 years left, and he will break Gareth Barry's record, by the way, but that seems like a tap-in. I'm not going to do that as a prediction. I think he'll manage in the Championship. Maybe Stoke or something. 29th, Mohamed El Neni will win a trophy as a manager. Mohamed El Neni, despite being an absolute pudding as a player, seems to be a bit of a voice in the lead in the dressing room, which is why he's stuck around Arsenal for so long. And I think he'll be a manager somewhere and he'll win a trophy. I'm not going to say where, because I have no idea, but it will happen. Okay, I'm not sure on this next one, prediction 30, to be totally honest, but isn't it fun one? I think Karim Benzema will go to Chelsea on loan for 6 months. Doesn't this scream something that Todd Boehly would do? The Chelsea lack of striker is evident, and they may be after Victor Osimhen. If they get Osimhen, then that kind of puts this out the window, but I think in January they'll do a panic loan and bring in Benzema on loan, who's openly unhappy in the Saudi Pro League. Okay, my 31st prediction is there will be an openly gay footballer in the top 5 leagues. This seems another obvious thing to say, but then surely in 10 years we'll be in a better world. Like, I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet. Just statistically, you know what I mean? 32nd, Andoni Iraola will manage Atletico Madrid. I've already said Simeone will leave, and I think the replacement will be Bournemouth's Iraola, who will do very impressive things with Bournemouth, I think, potentially even take them into Europe at some point. Okay, my 33rd prediction, I've gone a bit creative with this one. I think Jamie Vardy is going to manage Sheffield Wednesday, and I think he's going to be sacked after less than 10 games. He just doesn't seem like much of a coach, but it's going to be very similar to when Wayne Rooney or Frank Lampard, these big ex-players, are getting these gigs as managers despite not really having any experience as coaches. 34th, Arsenal will lift the Premier League again. This seems surely, eventually, especially if Pep leaves City at the end of this season and they're relegated, surely Arsenal will win the Premier League next season. Surely, right? 35th, I've gone for Notts County to be promoted to the Premier League. Now, you may laugh at this, right? But who would have said Luton Town 10 years ago would be in the Premier League? Nobody. So you never know. And I think it's going to be one of those crazy stories, and Notts County will play in the Premier League. 36th, an English player will win the Ballon d'Or. Now, believe it or not, England has not had a Ballon d'Or winner since Michael Owen in 1999, I believe. But I think that's going to change. And Jude Bellingham seems the obvious shout, but then there's a few others, Phil Foden potentially. And you never know, if Cole Palmer gets a big move, it could be him as well. Maybe even Saka, if Saka goes to, I don't know, Madrid or something. Which could happen as well. 37th, Antony will go back to Ajax and rebuild his career. The story of Antony is quite tragic. He was one of the most exciting wingers in Europe, a team that so many people wanted to sign. He went to Man United for a ridiculous £88 million fee, and, well, the rest is history. But I think eventually Man United will get tired of this guy. They'll sell him back to Ajax, and he'll actually do quite well there and regain some confidence, and then get another bigger move and actually turn it around. On the other hand, talk of another failed Man United winger, Jadon Sancho will never play for England again. I just think it's so stacked, so competitive in that area, especially for right now in his age category. And there's still more great ones coming through. I can't see Sancho dislodging a lot of the people ahead of him. Ever. 39th, Galatasaray will win the Europa League. I just wanted to chuck this one in there. Their form at last season was insane, and I think the team they built was really good and could have a solid run in the Europa League at some point. 40th, the Saudi Pro League project will be over in the next 2 years. The Saudi Pro League is going to go down in flames, a bit like China. It didn't really have the success, I don't think, that anyone expected, because their strategy didn't really work, because they just kind of bought over the hill poor players. But the problem is, you can't just throw a couple superstars with complete no-namers and expect people to be excited about your league. I don't think it was really as successful as it could have been. I think this whole project will be similar to China and just financially collapse, especially the ridiculous money they're paying people. 41st, I think Rangers will win the Europa Conference League. Surely, they almost won the Europa League. Why not? You know what I mean? Chuck it in there. 42nd is probably my most mad one. I think Luton Town will not only be promoted back to the Premier League, but I think they will have a top half finish. I think Luton, what they're doing is they've got a long-term project. They've got a long-term trajectory to be at the top. And I think eventually they'll be promoted again with a stronger team and they'll get a top half finish against all the odds. Okay, my 43rd prediction, someone will lose 10-0 in the Premier League. We've seen 9-0 about 4 or 5 times. Surely that 10th goal has happened. Surely we're seeing a 10-0 victory. Probably to a newly promoted team by someone like Arsenal, Liverpool or City. 44th, Eddie Howe will manage Man United. Eddie Howe's future at Newcastle, everyone says it, but I don't know how long it can really last there. Eventually they'll get tired of him, and similar to Ten Hag at Man United, who knows how long it could last. And I think Eddie Howe seems like a interesting replacement, someone who could manage United eventually. Okay, my 45th prediction is probably my most insane one, right? But remember, in the last 10 years in football, Leicester City won the Premier League, so don't get too mad at me. I think West Brom will win the FA Cup. I don't know why. I can't explain this one. I just think it's going to happen randomly. We always see a few random FA Cup winners, like when Wigan won it, or when Swansea won it, or even Leicester won the FA Cup. I know they were a bit better, but still was surprising. Okay, next I'm going to say the World Cup, the 2030 World Cup, will be the worst World Cup since 1934. If you don't know what happened in 1934, it was basically just an Italian World Cup won by Italy, which was fascist propaganda. I think the 2030 World Cup is a disaster. To hold it in 3 different continents is a bit of a joke, really. And it's just going to be all over the place. There's going to be no atmosphere, and it's going to be an awful tournament, probably. Okay, my 47th prediction. Haaland will score not 49 goals in a season for Real Madrid, which will beat the best that Ronaldo ever did at Real Madrid. I think Haaland, say what you will about him as an actual footballer, but when it comes to goal scoring, there's no one better than him in the world right now. And I think in that Real Madrid team with Mbappe and Vinicius Jr. feeding him potentially, he will break Ronaldo's great record of 48 goals in a season at Madrid. 48th, Messi will win the World Cup again. I think that Argentina could still be favourites in the next World Cup, the 2026 one. I think Messi will just about still be playing. He's 39. You know, Ronaldo was still playing in the recent Euros at 39. Whether Messi will be a starter is another story, but I think he will win the World Cup. Okay, my penultimate prediction, 49th, is that the Carabao Cup will be axed. So that means there will be no more Carabao Cup because people will realise that it's just a bit of a pointless competition and there's too many games already. And if they keep expanding European competitions in extreme fashion, the Carabao Cup will have to go. And my final prediction, this is probably my best one. Are you ready for this? Preston North End and Bristol City in the 2033-2034 season will finish in 12th and 13th respectively. Okay, I've been Lewis, and I'll see you in 10 years and we'll see how many of these I got deadly wrong.